want to show you a quick watercolor portrait painting in a sketchbook, and I also want to talk a bit about how to approach this difficult topic. Not only watercolor is quite a difficult medium, but choosing the right colors can be so overwhelming that I bet that many of you just quit before you start. I'm also not the most patient person in the world, so that's why I think I chose watercolor medium, because paintings are quickly finished, kind of like how colors blend by themselves. So today I want to show you my lazy approach to painting a portrait. It's going to be very quick, very loose. We are only going to be using 3 colors, so let's get started. I'll be using this sketchbook by Lab. It has pulp paper in it. For now, I have no experience with this particular brand, but I will review this in more detail once I've used it more. First, I will do sketch with red colored pencil. This one is Polychromos by Faber-Castell. I don't always use red pencil. More often, I use regular 2B pencil. The reference photo I chose is from Pinterest. When you want to do a quick study, I find it most practical to go to Pinterest and just paint whatever image inspires you most within the first 3 minutes. If I stay surfing for longer than that, I might end up not painting at all, because the longer I surf, the more indecisive and overwhelmed I get. I don't know how about you, but this is just what happens to me often. So find your reference quick and make a snapshot. Then decide how big you want to paint this. For me, the dilemma was between painting on one page versus going larger and paint on both sides of the spread. I ended up using a whole spread because larger surface allows me to be more expressive, and I wish more sketchbooks were made in A3 size. I would just buy a lot of them and use most passionately. Okay, what follows will be the worst possible attempt at a sketch. I was hesitating to even show this because the combination of colored pencil and not doing some kind of drawing warm-up is the best way to achieve incorrectable lines that are all over the place. The sketching with colored pencils is more fun and even enjoyable because they are soft and I always feel like I have more control over them, but they erase badly. So if you need to erase a lot, you will end up with many visible lines on your paper that you won't be able to hide anymore. My approach to sketching a portrait is rather simplistic. It relies a lot on sketching random shapes that I see within my reference. If you work from a photo like this, where there is a clear sense of light and shadow, you will do best if you try to draw individual shapes of light and shadow instead of trying to figure out where the silhouette of each part of the portrait is. It is more difficult to imagine form and kind of easy to just see different shapes on the photo and try to place them on the page and put together, which is what I usually do, and it works for me most of the time.
There is a problem that I have here with the eyes. The proportions, they are too far apart. I'm very undecisive today and just can't get that proportion quite looking good. I keep on finding many mistakes. Strange thing about mouth from this angle is that the top lip appears wider than the bottom one. Usually it's the other way around, but I think that the entire mouth is lower than it should be. This is a very difficult angle. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to repair it. This might be the biggest mess that I've done in a very long time. It's gonna be fine. I know it looks messy. I love cleaning up messy sketches with watercolor, so whatever it turns out, I'm gonna have fun. That's my decision. It's what I've decided today. I can't stop now. Somebody stop me.
Actually, when you do a quick drawing warm-up, draw a few circles, maybe a 10-minute portrait study beforehand, you should not have to go through so many trouble sketching your final portrait. And if you're like me and correct a lot, regular pencil might be a better choice than colored pencil. You'll be able to erase without leaving so many marks. By the way, on my Patreon you can find this entire drawing process in real time and many other drawing exercises. In this portrait, we'll use raw sienna, alizarin crimson, and Payne's grey. My watercolors are mostly Winsor & Newton, Daniel Smith, or Schmincke Horadams, but my Payne's grey is Sennelier, and I buy this particular one for this beautiful velvety shade that is more neutral and less blue than from other brands. Raw sienna from Daniel Smith granulates a little bit, which gives the artwork extra texture and roughness, while the other two paints are smooth. You can achieve quite a range of colors with just these. Raw sienna and alizarin crimson can produce a beautiful subtle skin tone. Just mix those two and add some water to dilute dilute it. This makes the skin tone lighter. These are all variants of the same mix. Some have more yellow and some more red in them. You can lighten by adding water to the mixture, but when you want to darken the mixture, you will need to add Payne's Gray. And this last mix of all three is brown. We will use it for the hair. You can balance your brown by making it either more yellow or more red. For this painting, I want it more reddish. Lastly, I mostly use flat brushes right now. All are natural bristles and I like the extra control they provide, and also the brush mark. It looks kind of tidy, which helps create that organized look in my painting. I'm gonna leave this dry now. The first layer is always so watery. I enjoy that we established a bit more of the tone already in the first layer. So let's now deepen the shadows a little bit. Going to mix that skin tone base. We'll start to add more tone to the face. This paper, it already feels like it will allow me to build 3 layers, but it doesn't absorb as well as cotton paper, which is not even expected because paper is for studies and not for some heavy work with 20 layers. So for this shading process, you'll have to call your patience to be on guard. In this stage, you have to focus. The goal is to add more intense paint to the areas that appear darker on the reference. Those are your shadows. This is easier said than done. Biggest challenge is the medium itself, because wet paint, it looks darker than when it dries, and sometimes you catch yourself going over the same areas twice, 3 or 4 times, and still the shadow just isn't as dark as it needs to be. I like to think of this entire process, this kind of process, like patchwork. You're basically placing the paint piece by piece, area by area, next to one another. Some need to be blended, some can remain as they are, like a bit sharper, but in the end you'll have your picture because it will emerge. You can also observe the reference and search for changes in color, hue, and what I mean by that is that in some areas the skin appears more yellow, other areas it appears reddish, and those parts of the face that tend to turn away from the light source, they will always have a bit of a gray tone. So when you manage to capture these differences in a portrait, it comes alive pretty quickly. Painting hair is a bit easier than painting skin, but you cannot overly complicate this, and I would forget painting individual hair strings from top to bottom because this makes the image flat and it also distracts too much from the face. Instead, try to imagine hair as one coherent material that covers the head, so it will have, like any other 3D object, lighter and also darker areas. And what I do in the second layer is just to paint the darkest areas of the hair and then leave the lighter parts as they are. Let's call this a second layer. And I have to dry because everything is wet. Honestly, pulp papers like this one, they hold paint a little better
wet on dry. I do not hate the paper so far. Now is the time to kind of look for mistakes, finalize the tones that are not yet where they should be, and then add some texture like freckles before we get to the adding the very darkest darks. Now the freckles. So the freckles will be done with flesh tone and it will be a diluted paint, so that adds texture. Always when you're painting freckles, do it with watery paint, like not paint that is too thick. So I like the freckles, but one or two is not where it's supposed to be, so I'm gonna smudge it with damp brush, just a bit, and should be fine now. Really love freckles. Now we're going to finalize the darkest darks. Going to use the basic mixture of our yellow and red with the Payne's gray in it. First, I'd like to mix some sort of brown.
Now, with this darker brown, you can enhance the shadows in the hair that we talked about. And this time the paint is darker, which means that it contains more pigment and a bit less water. I love doing this with flat brush. I think it's perfect for painting hair.
I need to dry this because now everything is wet. I think we can start applying the darkest darks. So I'm just mixing in a bit more Payne's gray into the remaining color that I have on my palette. And now let's basically just fill in all the spots that need this color. So the darkest darks should be around the face, even if you see on a photo reference that there's a very dark like in here, because this spot is away from the center of the painting. So we want the highest contrast to emphasize what is the point of our painting, and that is the face. Here are hard edges, which is another thing that can catch the attention in a very disturbing way, and I sometimes just grab a damp brush and smudge those edges so that they do not steal so much attention. I need one more shadow that is here on the nose, that goes through the nostril. Smallest brush now, and we need to use it to suggest here and there bits of the brows and some other details. Lastly, we can grab some of the white gouache and just add those few little highlights that we missed. This is one example of how you can practice the watercolor portrait painting in your sketchbook in more or less 3 layers.
Full real-time process of this and many more of my paintings can be found on my Patreon, and if you want to learn more about watercolor portraits, I also have a Skillshare class that explains drawing and painting basics. You can join Skillshare with a free trial link that I will leave for you in the video description. And this is the final outcome. I hope that you like it, and I will see you around. Bye!